Hello, my name is Michael Lambert and I'm an entrepreneur. Today I'd like to say a little bit more about Brexit. I made an earlier video in which I explained that from the point of view of small or medium-sized businesses, exporting to the EU was now going to be impossible. Impossible not just because Brexit imposes huge extra burdens in terms of paperwork, expense, inconvenience for anyone trying to export to the EU, but that it imposes the same burdens on importers, customers within the EU, and they just simply would not accept it, and they will not accept it. And that's why we've seen already a catastrophic drop in exports to the EU. Business is all about having a competitive advantage. You know, you want to have a better prices than your competitors, or you want to have better quality or better service, or you want to have a friendship with your customer and so on. And what Brexit simply does is it imposes upon all British exporters a huge, very often insurmountable competitive disadvantage. It just kills trade. And we can see in the papers every day how badly Brexit is going. It's not just small businesses that are being affected. The whole of the fishing industry seems to have been decimated. Farmers are unable to export. Anybody producing food cannot export to the EU. Or they can, but it's very, very difficult and very complicated, involves lots and lots of extra paperwork. In fact, I have some figures for January concerning how much exports to the EU are down, or were down in January. Cheese, 85% down. Beef, 91% down. Animal food, 80% down. Salmon, 98% down. Fish, 79% down. Cereals, 74% down. Now, where are we going to make that up? We're talking about millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Where are we going to get that from? We have this ridiculous spectacle of Liz Truss, the Remainer, going around the world and trying to do all these free trade deals and coming back and putting her picture all over Twitter, smiling away. She did a deal the other day, a free trade agreement with Albania. Albania has a population 1/3 of the size of London. She's all over Twitter today, looking very gloomy, funnily enough, because I think the penny is dropping as far as she's concerned. Looking very gloomy, announcing a memorandum of agreement with Thailand. Now, Thailand have been negotiating a free trade deal with the EU since March 2013. That's 8 years. So if we're the same, by 2030 we should have a free trade agreement with Thailand. It's becoming very clear, I think, if you look at the body language of the politicians, the way they're behaving, that the penny is dropping. They are realising that this Brexit is a catastrophic disaster and a dreadful mistake, and it's very obvious that they've got no idea what to do. The Prime Minister's not looking quite as cocky as usual, quite pleased with himself as usual. He's a bit more serious. You've got Michael Gove keeping a low profile and not being half as assertive as he normally is. You've got Dominic Raab going to America, insulting their intelligence by saying the EU are trying to impose a border down the Irish Sea, the very border that Boris Johnson signed up to in December. And all of the sort of crazies on the right wing of the Conservative Party, all very quiet these days. Because it's very, very obvious. You only have to look at the newspapers, with the exception of Daily Express. You've only got to look at the newspapers to see that it is a disaster. And nobody knows how to get out of it. Of course, they make excuses. Michael Gove was appearing at the beginning of February in front of something called the European Security Committee. And it's a committee headed by Bill Cash, and it seemed to be mostly made up of pro-Brexiteers. But anyway, he was being interviewed, and at some stage he said, you might have read in the newspapers at the weekend that the Road Haulage Association have done a survey, and they found that trade across the channel, or movements across the channel, are 68% down on last year. He said, this is quite wrong. I'm going to pass you to my colleague who will tell you the correct figures. And his colleague sat there and said, things were a bit quiet at the beginning of January, but everything is now back to normal, that exports were down 2% and that imports were down 1%. Now, how stupid do they think we are? And then you get this gormless David Frost. He says it's all to do with stockpiling. It's all to do with people haven't yet figured out how to fill out the forms. Well, we can get really, really, really good at filling out forms. It won't make a scrub of difference, because our customers don't want to fill out forms. That is the problem. Now, I went to Lidl, my local supermarket, a few days ago, and I bought some Italian prosciutto, some German salami, I bought some French brie, I bought some Spanish oranges. No problem. Shop's almost fully stocked. Well, fully stocked, as are all supermarkets. There's no shortage of food. This was one of the big scare stories, wasn't it? Project Fear before Brexit, that the shops would be empty. No, absolutely full of stock. No problem whatsoever. And why? Well, fairly simple. There are no checks at the frontiers. So Europeans can send all the merchandise they want here, fill up all our shops, and at the same time you hear that cheese manufacturer up in Cheshire who's been all over the news facing ruin because he can no longer export to the EU. And that list of figures I've just read out. British firms, food producers, cannot export to the EU. And yet the EU can put whatever they like to the UK. Taking back control, I think they call it. Now, this arrangement with having the borders open was supposed to last until part of it the end of March, which is about now, and the rest the end of July. But of course, nothing's ready. So that's to be extended now to, part of it will be the end of this year, and part of it will be in March 2022, next year. Now, when you open your borders and you tell everybody that your borders are open, what is that saying? That is the equivalent of putting an advert all over Facebook worldwide saying, come to the UK to smuggle. Bring anything in, anything you like. And the reason we have this situation is that Boris Johnson wanted to be able to announce on the 31st of December that he had got Brexit done. And even though everybody knew that the facilities were not ready, arrangements were not ready, there weren't the 50,000 customs officers that had been promised, nothing was ready, he had to be able to get up and stand up and say in front of everybody, he'd got Brexit done. And so the gormless David Frost entered into what probably going to be one of the worst trade deals ever, just to get it done by 31st of December. Now, there are a lot of people who are very angry, and they're going to get more angry. There are the fishermen, there are the farmers, there are all the factories that can't get parts, there are all the firms that have built businesses exporting to the EU can no longer do so. There are all the performing artists who cannot go to the EU anymore to perform. There are all the people coming back from Spain because they haven't filled out their forms properly or whatever, haven't made the right arrangements, and they're being deported. All these people are very angry. And then there are the young people. Young people didn't vote for Brexit. Young people were vehemently opposed to Brexit. And now they see the Erasmus is gone, so they can't go and study in other countries. They know that they're not going to be able to travel very easily in future. And we all know that we're going to get poorer. We all know that once border controls are imposed, then of course the amount of food coming to the UK from Europe is going to be reduced, almost certainly, because people won't be bothered with it, and prices will go up, and then there will be empty shelves in the supermarkets. And I think the government knows that there's going to be a lot of anger, that there's going to be a lot of civil unrest, and I think that's why they are in panic bringing in this police bill in order that they can actually ban marches at a whim. But it isn't going to work. We've seen the demonstrations in Bristol and other places of the country, all over the country, where people are just too angry. They're coming out on the streets. People aren't going to sit home watching Holmes and the Hammer when they've lost their livelihood, when they've lost their future. No, they're going to come out and demonstrate, bill or no bill. And I think when you see some of the film of how the police dealt with some of those crowds, it could become quite unpleasant. I think we should all be very, very concerned about that. People are not going to put up with standing around waiting for their everything to just be destroyed by a government who are just utterly incompetent, have no idea what they're doing. And I think also when you see that Boris Johnson spends £100,000 painting a jet, and then a couple of months later he buys a completely new jet to make himself look presidential. When he spends £2.9 million on decorating a room in 10 Downing Street, so he's going to look more presidential. When you see all these PPE contracts going to pals of Conservatives, when you see £37 billion going, well, nobody knows where, nobody knows what it's doing, given to a wife of a Tory MP, that makes people a lot more angry. You know, there are people depending upon food banks. There are people sleeping in the streets. And we are just destroying our economy. And it's not going to end nicely, I don't think. Anyway, that's just my thought for today. So thank you for watching this far, and until next time, bye-bye.